As I'm remodeling the old garage into the new deep pantry, I can't help but think that now's the time to have a conversation about some of the reasons why a deep pantry or a pepper pantry are important. And one of the key components of that reason is the just-in-time inventory system. A lot of people have heard that term, but they're not really quite sure what it is. So today, we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail so that you have a better cognitive understanding of how it is important and why it fits into our plan for building and preparing a deep pantry. Okay, so stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grumpy Acres. If this is your first time here, welcome. We appreciate you being here. As I said, understanding the just-in-time inventory system is a key component into understanding why a deep pantry or a prepper pantry is important. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about your first time here and you don't understand why I'm talking about the garage renovation and pantry renovation, I've created a playlist. I'm going to tack it on at the end of the video. You can go back and go watch those videos and watch the transformation of this old nasty garage that we have on this property into a brand new deep pantry. The modern just-in-time inventory system came out of a Japanese system called the Kanban system. And it was developed after World War II as Japan was rebuilding after all the devastation from the Allied bombings. And what it is, Kanban literally means just in time in Japanese. And what it is manufacturers rely on subcontractors and parts piece suppliers to order stuff as they need it. These companies are ordering 2-3 times a week sometimes. These companies order as needed in small batches. What they found over time was they didn't have to have as much money tied up in warehouse space. They did not have to have as much capital tied up in inventory that was sitting on the shelf. And they found out that they didn't have to worry about obsolescence as much because they're buying stuff exactly when they need it. So they don't have all these items sitting on the shelf becoming obsolete as the product changes and the market changes. Now this concept started coming to America in the late 60s and came into prominence. People started figuring it out and it really gained speed in the early 70s. And what companies have done is they have gotten rid of the big warehouses, they have gotten rid of the big warehouse staff, and they've bought expensive inventory tracking software, and they've hired purchasing managers and inventory managers. And it really does help the bottom line. It's this lean manufacturing concept has helped get rid of a lot of the excess money that's needed to make a product and get it to the market. As a result of this system coming to America, this just-in-time inventory system is what it's become called here in America, has permeated every aspect of manufacturing, and it's even gotten into retailing. There's not a big business in America today that does not rely on the just-in-time inventory system. Like I said, the three things that make this attractive to these companies is less warehouse space and staff, less capital tied up in inventory, and less danger of obsolescence or expiration of their product. Now, there is one downside to this, and it's a huge downside. The downside is that part of the lean manufacturing process relies heavily on availability. And anything that disrupts the supply chain and hurts the availability of the parts or the product that they need will throw the system into disarray. As I said, this just-in-time system is in every aspect of retail in America these days, all the way down to our grocery stores and our box stores and everything across the board. And where companies used to have big warehouses and they would have stock on hand that they could sell directly to the customer, what happens now is those warehouse spaces have been decreased in size, giving more space to the retail floor. The back of the store, instead of having a week or two worth of parts or inventory on hand, is now dedicated to pallet breakdown, and there's just enough stuff in the back of the store that they can replenish for a night, maybe two. And these companies, they order frequently. The shipments arrive sometimes as much as twice a day in some places, depending how busy the store is. And as you go check out your item, you go buy your item. Now, you might think that the cashier collecting your money is the most important part of that process. And in a sense, you're right. But more realistically, the most important part of that process is that cash register is tied into an inventory system. And as you buy a product, you buy a jar of peanut butter at the grocery store. It goes into the system. The system says, okay, we need to order one more of these. And then whenever it reaches a certain point in the inventory system, it automatically shoots off a purchase order, and the head company or the supplier or the parts manufacturer will send that directly to the store. This system can be easily disrupted. If you think about it, weather can do it. In the Midwest, we've got snowstorms all winter long. That shuts down transportation, makes getting stuff from point A to point B very hard sometimes. You've got natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes that affect larger scale areas that do that. Strikes can disrupt it. And we saw that, you can see that locally all the time. Tornadoes, snowstorms, earthquakes, those are pretty localized events. And the system may be disrupted, but there are other parts of the country that can provide support for those areas and help get the system back up and running. Now, what we saw through 2020 and 2021 and early 2022 was a global disruption of the delivery system. And we saw how that manifested itself. It manifested itself in not being able to get what we needed in a timely manner. We saw empty shelves for the first time in America in a very long time. And it wasn't just in one place. It was across the entire country. And it was across the entire globe. You know, there was no relief from any place else in the country. If you remember correctly, as far as the disruptions in the supply chain go, the big one was in the grocery stores. And I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many processing plants shut down because of the thing, but a majority, at one point, a majority of the protein processors in America were shut down because they had to send their staff home. And it resulted in higher prices and unavailability on a scale Americans haven't seen since the Great Depression. Will help. Another thing that will affect the just-in-time inventory system is panic buying. And panic buying is a big fear amongst the preparedness community, because what happens is these people that aren't prepared see something coming down the road and they go out and they buy a bunch of stuff. We see it in the Midwest all the time. Whenever big blizzards are rolling across the land, the shops fill up, the grocery stores fill up with people, and invariably it seems like most of them are buying bread and milk. And I could never understand that. And there's people in there panic buying, and all they've got is bread and milk. What are they going to make? Milk sandwiches? I don't know. You know, and we saw it on during the thing in 2020 and 21. I don't know if you remember how hard toilet paper was to come by. It like disappeared off the shelves. And, you know, as homesteaders and preparedness-minded people, we always bought in bulk. So buying toilet paper by a case was never a thing for us. I mean, it was just a cost-effective way of storing stuff on the homestead, so we didn't have to go into the city and buy stuff all the time, you know, because it costs a lot of money to drive up there. And it really became frustrating on our part because we were not able to get the stuff we usually got in a timely manner because everybody else was out buying it for some reason. Now here's where this gets into the reasoning why we need a deep pantry. That just-in-time inventory system has permeated all of our cultures in every single store, and most importantly in this conversation, the grocery store and the store, the pharmacies and places where we buy things like that we need for our survival. You know, the appliances and all that stuff really don't matter to us in the big picture thing. We're worried more about preparing for what may come, any disruptions in our lives that may happen. We're about preparing that. And you know, this system, if you remember correctly, I'll put a link right up here to the video. I did a video about the control points or the checkpoints in the food delivery system and how vulnerable it made us to the supply of our food being cut off. That just-in-time inventory system is probably the most important one for most people because it's the one that's closest to them and they are most familiar with because they see the direct results of it all the time. I mean, even during good times, you can see the results of a traffic jam on your local store. Now, this system, I don't know off the top of my head, but there are only 5 or 6 major long-term food preparedness or food storage companies out there. You know, the Augustin Farms and the Made Right and all that stuff. They use this system too. And as preparedness-minded people, what happens if there's a disruption in the supply chain and we're trying to prepare and we cannot get what we need to fill the holes in our inventory? Exactly. We either do without or we pay a lot more for it. So the purpose of our deep pantry or our prepper pantry, you'll hear me go back and forth between that. It just depends on what hits my mind first. But they're the same thing. The deep pantry and the prepper pantry are the same thing. What the purpose of that does is it makes it so instead of having to go to the store to get what we need in a time of emergency, we can get it from our pantry and we can just walk down the hall, grab what we need, and bring it up. And it's the deep pantry or prepper pantry is part of our pantry system. And the way we've got it set up is we've got the deep pantry or the prepper pantry, which is for long-term emergency storage of items. Then we've got the preparedness pantry, which is essentially it's in our processing kitchen, and it's more of a frequently used pantry. If something runs out in the kitchen pantry, which is in our main kitchen, that's the last pantry stop before it goes into the dinners and the meals and such. If something is gone out of the kitchen pantry and Yoda needs it, she can go down to the preparedness pantry, get what she needs, and go use it in the kitchen and put it back into the kitchen pantry so she doesn't have to go back and forth all the time. And as items are rolled out, we use the first in, first out system. So as something goes into it, as stuff is used, it's the first thing going out. And we'll discuss that more whenever I talk about our can rotator and all that stuff. So as you can see, the deep pantry or the prepper pantry is an important part of our preparedness system, our preparedness plan. It allows us the security of knowing that in a time of need, we can go back and we can pull stuff out of there. Now, we will roll stuff out. Just the way we use it is we put stuff in the long-term storage, and as the preparedness pantry, things can go directly into the preparedness pantry from the store, but they also come out of as best used by dates or expiration dates roll by. Stuff gets rolled out of the prepper pantry into the preparedness pantry and gets used. We try to make sure that we're using up stuff before it expires and it goes bad. And I'm completely honest, man. The last year, our inventory system is in a complete shambles. I cannot tell you what we have. I cannot tell you what has expired because we've got our preparedness stuff spread across 2 buildings and they're in boxes, and we can't see. We've lost stuff to freezing. We've lost stuff to cans being punctured. We're finding stuff constantly. So one of the benefits of us building this pantry is I'm going to be able to get in and get that stuff sorted out and get it squared away and get our inventory tracking system back up, and so we can get a good handle on what holes we need to plug and what we need to get. So there it is. That's the just-in-time inventory system in a nutshell, and the basic cognitive understanding of why it's important to us and why we need to start building a deep pantry. Now, here's the thing, and this always comes up in the conversation. I don't have a lot of space, and yes, there are preparedness-minded people that do not have a lot of space. They live in small houses, they live on small properties, or they live in apartments, and there's just not enough space. You can make a deep pantry. It's just not going to be as deep as the one we're building. Our deep pantry is going to be 230 square feet plus storage above it and below it. So we're probably, in all honesty, looking at 500 square feet of storage space once all said and done. I mean, potential. I'm not gonna be able to use it all because just getting stuff in there. But we're gonna have a lot of space. But you can find space. You can create space. If you live in an apartment, put your bed up on blocks and put a duvet cover. Is that what they're called? The little ruffle things that go around the bottom, and use that as your deep pantry. You can get in there and have 3-4 weeks worth of food stored underneath your bed. Get creative. There's all sorts of channels out there on creative ways of storing a lot of stuff in small spaces. Look for the tiny house. The tiny house people. They have made that an art form on cramming as much stuff as possible in a very tiny space. But you should always be looking at getting some sort of deep pantry, and your deep pantry may roll directly over to your kitchen pantry because you don't have space for that intermediate pantry size. But if you do have room and the ability to set up those 3 types of pantries for your system, then it will go a long way to making you more self-sufficient and more prepared should anything happen. Well, I hope this was at the very least educational a little bit. Hopefully I was able to share a little bit of what I found out about the just-in-time system and give you some of the reasoning on exactly why we're building a deep prepper pantry. Share this video out with somebody that might find it useful or find it entertaining. Hit that big thumbs up button down there below the video. Let YouTube know that you like this type of content, and we're going to put more and more of this out. As things roll along, the country's changing, and here at Grumpy Acres, we think it's important to share this knowledge with people and try to get some people to open their eyes and become more aware of their surroundings and what they need to do to be more self-sufficient, more prepared, and most importantly, free. Go ahead, if you're first-time visitor here, be sure to click on the playlist link at the end of the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. The subscriptions support the channel. It lets YouTube know that people like our content, and this is the type of information and entertainment that they want in their lives. So by subscribing and hitting that notification bell, you're helping us, and you're letting us know that there's a desire for what we're putting out there, and you're letting YouTube know that this is the type of stuff that people want. More importantly, they need to see. Okay? As always, as we end the video, I'm going to tell you, go out and pursue a life done free today. Okay, guys? Take care. Thanks, Milo.